There is a massive yearning for the breeze up horses, and what you ultimately are selling is the dream of Royal Ascot winners, aren't you? And that's what you're always trying to achieve with a 2-year-old. Top hats flying everywhere. They're the scenes you want to see, isn't it?
I'm Jess Stafford, and over the last few weeks we've been speaking to a variety of trainers, bloodstock agents and syndicate members about the breeze up sales.
You know, they're becoming a really fashionable and a really good route in to top class animals. Tend to use our eyes first, and then we also use our ears as well, what the consigners are saying to us.
In this 3-part mini-series, we'll be asking them why the breeze up sells, what they're looking for and their insightful ways of finding the best value for money. Middleham Park Racing has fast become one of the leading racehorse syndicates in the country, and with 140 horses in training, this year is going to be set to be one of their best yet, following in from 2022, which has to have marked one of the most landmark years for Middleham Park. And Tom and Tim Palin join me this morning to discuss the racehorse syndicates, but also, very importantly, the process in which they go and look and buy some of the best horses that we can see in the country in the very familiar silks of the blue and orange. So thank you very much for joining me today. Wonderful to see you. And I think we must have to start off the back of 2022. Tim, how are you looking ahead of 2023?
Well, it's going to take some matching, isn't it? 125 winners, 2.49, I think it was, in million in prize money, and a Grade 1 winner at Cheltenham, and a Group 1 winner in the Abbey with the Platinum Queen. So it's going to take a bit of matching, but we'll try our best. Yeah,
look, you sell the dream, don't you? It's syndicates. It's trying to give ordinary people, lots of people, the opportunity to get involved in racing. I suppose for the point, the exercise of what we're here for is to talk about how you do it, how you go and find some of the best horses in the country and how you source it. Do you have a bloodstock strategy, or how has it evolved over the course of the last 28 years?
I think the biggest difference now is we're able to operate in the middle market. Back in the day, 20 odd years ago, we were probably spending 5,000-10,000 and operating at the lower end. Now we're in that kind of 40 to 100 kind of bracket, and I think we're good operators in that middle market. That's probably what's changed. Mm-hmm. I think the growth of syndicates as well, I think that's changed immeasurably since we began in 1995, and it's 2 racing channels now we have, don't we? And we have terrestrial TV that covers it particularly well. So I think everyone can gain access to the racing game, and everyone can access racing via their TVs.
Okay, so Tom, it's sort of supply and demand, it seems like. You've grown, you've had to have obviously your foundation horses to get you there. But what were you looking at the beginning? Was it always just a good value source of trying to find horses and trying to give people fun? What's changed from that day onwards to sort of the way that you approach buying it?
Well, obviously Dad kind of set a business up 10 years before I was even bothered about racehorses, really. So a lot of hard work went into that, and like you sort of say about the foundation horses, we got quite lucky early on with some nice horses. China Castle, who until very recently was still the winning most horse on the all-weather. So we had a good foundation there, but the game kind of changed when Tamor came along, the champion 2-year-old, and that's kind of where the business then became a business, really, I would say, and it kind of took it to the next level. And you mentioned supply and demand, and that's where a lot of people did start gravitating towards ourselves, and that's when we had to start kind of upping the game, because there was an expectation that year on year we have to kind of deliver with nice horses. A lot of people are entrusting their hard-earned money into ourselves, so we did have to start working with good agents, with good trainers, and I'd like to think that we've built a solid foundation, and we kind of do deliver almost annually now.
Yeah, well, it's proof is in the pudding. And Tim, so you must have had a range of different agents you've worked with throughout the course of the last 28 years, trainers as well. You probably have got to the point now, and that's just sort of, it's shown in what happened last year, that you've got a good process, it's working. Can you tell us about the strategy, if there is one, towards the bloodstock and the buying of horses now?
Yeah, it differs. We try and buy all sorts of horses for all sorts of markets. We'll buy unraced yearlings. We'll buy unraced 3-year-olds. Store horses for the national hunt game. We'll buy horses in training. One of our Group 1 winners, G-Force, was a horse in training. We bought him for 25,000 guineas. And we'll also buy horses at the breeze ups now, which they're becoming a really fashionable and a really good route in to top-class animals. So we try and mix and match it from everywhere. We don't just pigeonhole ourselves as this is the kind of horse, that's the kind of horse. And we work with lots of different trainers. We've got over 40 trainers on our books, and we probably work with nearly the same number of agents who are associated with those trainers. With each trainer tends to be an agent that's associated with them. We tend to work with them rather than have just one or two of our own agents, if you like. But you'll often see horses knocked down to Middleham Park racing. So we don't always use agents. We'll sometimes we'll back our own opinion with veterinary advice, and the hammer will go down in our name. So it comes from all sorts of places. You don't really know where the next good one's going to come from. It could come from anywhere.
Yeah, I think most would say when they're looking to buy horses, you've got to go to the yearling sales. To buy a flat horse, you've got to go and potentially stand in a point-to-point field to buy a national hunt horse. But the game has changed, hasn't it? You touched on how the breeze-ups have been fashionable. What has your history been like with the breeze-up? So obviously we will touch on last year and how successful it has been, but what has the approach to the breeze-ups been over the course of the last 28 years for you?
I remember speaking 2 or 3 years ago with Richard Hannon, and he says, "Do you know what, Tim? Sometimes I'm in yearling mode, sometimes I'm in breeze up mode. Sometimes he'll be having Barney Roys, and on other occasions he'll be buying Memasses. So it's a tricky one to know where it's coming from. I suppose we've got a little bit more breeze up orientated of late. I think the horses that you can buy at the breeze ups, they've thrived over the winter, and you can go in there and you've got so much more information at your fingertips to be able to go and source them and bid on them and buy them and race them. They've literally thrived since the hammer went down as yearlings through to the time that they're presented at the breeze up game.
Okay, so and Tom, obviously selling these horses, there's a big benefit when you've got a breeze up and you can literally go from buying them to racing them. Is that a massive advantage for you when you're selling them to new syndicate members?
Absolutely. We found that a lot of our clients, a lot of our owners, as with everything in life at the moment, there's a lot of emphasis on immediacy and precocity. So the fact that horses are kind of almost ready to run, you see them gallop in front of you. A lot of the hard work has already been done. Buy the horse, send it to the trainer, and within a month they could be out winning, and you could be dreaming of Royal Ascot. So it's a great benefit to our owners, the fact that you can just put your money in and you can have an immediate turnaround. It's great, and certainly they've definitely proved to be quite a hardy type as well. So you can get a nice 2-year-old career out of them as well, and on into their 3-year-old career as well. And
what is the reaction from syndicate members? Do you have people saying that we need to find something that's ready now? We want a Royal Ascot winner. Do you sell that kind of dream? Were you always sort of managing expectations? Because you've got a lovely range of horses that can go from all weather in the winter months to long middle distance horses that you give time to. So you seem like you sort of cater for all shapes and sizes, but do you do specific maybe syndicates that are just for the breeze up purchases, the breeze up kind of enthusiasts maybe? Absolutely. There is a massive yearning for the breeze up horses, and what you ultimately are selling is the dream of Royal Ascot winners, aren't you? And that's what you're always trying to achieve with a 2-year-old. I think that's a be-all and end-all, really. And then the second half of the season becomes its own entity. But that's what we kind of pigeonhole ourselves as, really, with the 2-year-olds with the breeze ups, is to try and get your Royal Ascot winners, to try and sell that dream. Top hats flying everywhere. They're the scenes you want to see, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So we've obviously know that last year was a great year. You've talked about breeze ups being more fashionable, and potentially off the back of it, you're going to go into this year. The next breeze up catalogues have all come out. Have you already looked at them? What are your thoughts? Are you going to add to your quota of horses based off the back of last year's success?
It's always difficult to know going into a yearling season, going into a breeze up season, how many you're going to be able to afford. Traditionally, we'd probably buy 8 to 12 breeze up horses, and I would say that's probably where we're going to pigeonhole ourselves this time. But to answer your question, yes, we've already looked at the Craven breeze ups. We've already booked ourselves in down here, and we're looking forward to kicking off with the first of those. And of course, we've had a lot of success from Doncaster, from Goffs UK, and we've had a lot of success from the Guineas sales before, Goresbridge as well. So there's lots of horses there that we've already started to look at. Yes. And touching on your quota and pigeonholing yourself, will you go in this year with the same mindset you might have had this time last year, thinking price-wise? Do you still have to be very committed to the value, or can you afford to be a little bit more punchy this year? I think we probably are going to go in there trying to stretch the elastic a little bit on one or two occasions, but equally, the invoices land about a week or 10 days, and every horse we buy is on spec. Yes, we've got lots of clients and customers that back us, and a lot of them are actually saying to us, we're waiting for the breeze ups this year, we're going to wait for the breeze ups. But yeah, they're all on spec, so yeah, we'll try and be a bit punchy, but equally, you do have to check your bank balance at the end of the day and don't overstretch the elastic too much.
Yeah, Tom, there's obviously been massive amounts said about the breeze ups over the last few years. We've seen the likes of Native Trail, we've seen Cachet, a Guineas winner for a syndicate. So it's not just you doing well, everyone's doing well, so it raises the bar. Do you feel like that this is just the way that, not just breeze ups are going, the sales are going, it's just everyone is wanting to get a bigger part of the pie?
Absolutely. All you've got to do is look at every sales results year on year. They're up, aren't they? Sale on sale, they're up, and it's kind of recession-proof, really, this industry, or it doesn't really bear any meaning to the real world. It kind of operates in its own little bubble, doesn't it? And they continue to increase, but I think the results continue to increase as well. Certainly from the breeze ups, as you say, there's Guineas winners, there's classic winners, there's classic seconds, there's Group 1 winners. They're just coming at you every which way from these breeze up horses, and I think that is kind of why there is a yearning for it for my clients, and they are still representing quite good value. We probably believe going into the breeze ups.
So we're going to use this opportunity now to look back at Middleham Park's biggest success stories, and we've got to start with the Queen herself, the Platinum Queen, who this time last year was a Bay filly by Cotai Glory. She was lot 228 in the sales at the Guineas Breeze Up sale at Newmarket, and you touched on the fact that you don't miss a sale. There's not a sale you don't see. There's probably not a page that you don't see in a catalogue. Let's just look back first at what she was, just in black and white. What did you see when you saw this, and what stood out to you?
Well, it's probably not the deepest pedigree in the world, but that's something we're quite forgiving of. We can't afford the regally bred horses, the blue bloods, the ones with only 2 dams on the page, so you have to compromise somewhat, so we're quite tolerant, but Cotai Glory, we felt, had made a great start to his stallion career, or his relatively young stallion career, crossed with Kodiak. It just kind of screamed speed on the page, and then what you want to see when the horse goes and breezes, does it kind of match up to what the pedigree suggests it should be? If it's a relatively slow breeze, it's probably not great. If it looks like a fast breeze, if the horse has quite a high cruising speed and quite a fast gait, then surely that's a good thing for the cross that the horse has.
So, as you mentioned, you've touched on speed. A lot of people look at the breeze ups and think, if you're going to get the fastest breeze, you're going to get the most expensive horse. Was that crossing your mind when you saw and possibly even got the time for this?
She did a good time, and we were impressed by the breeze. I think at the breeze ups we tend to use our eyes first, and then we also use our ears as well. What the consigners are saying to us about the horses. Look at the pedigree, dovetail that in, take a look at the time, and we're kind of a consensus management when we come to assessing which ones we want to bid on. Mike, Tom, myself will sit down and we'll chew the fat and say yay or nay, and then come up with some kind of prices that we might follow them through to. She did a good time. We probably didn't think that we'd be able to afford her, but we decided to follow her through just in case. From
my eye, she looks like the camera can't keep up with her. She's going from what you imagine with 2-year-olds. This is exactly what you want to see with a breeze up horse. She's straight as a die. It looks like Robson's on board, and imagine Aguirre, and she looks like she's responding well to his urgings as well. So, why wasn't she top lot?
It's a good question. Good question, but I'm happy that we got her.
That's the beauty, isn't it? If the top lot were the best horse, Sheikh Mohammed et al., they would own all the top horses. They don't. We have a chance, and that's the beauty of the game. That we, on a middle market budget for 40 to 100, Mayland C, we paid 100 for her. She was second in the Queen Mary. It's doable on a middle market budget if you put the kind of the bits and pieces together and what you believe in together, and it comes out with hopefully fast race horses.
It's possibly that she was Cotai Glory, who's still a stallion who maybe hadn't made as big an impact as he has done now. Maybe she was a horse who announced him really to the world, and obviously the pedigree, as we touched on earlier, maybe it's not as deep for some people. So the fact that she kind of did clock a good time and she breezed very well, maybe that was slightly offset by the pedigree and maybe the stallion a little bit would be something that you could maybe crap her a little bit for. But look, we have to operate in a value, and we're happy to compromise here. You know, a lot of our good horses have been by maybe not necessarily the most high profile of stallions, but that's kind of a market we operate in. That is a middle market.
Something has to give.
What I love about the breeze ups, and we'll just watch it again, is that if she didn't have Cotai Glory there, she could be. You'd be forgiven not to think that she'd be by one of the sexy stallions, wouldn't you? So that's the thing where that might put a potential buyer off. It's something that you wouldn't give too much of a worry about, and you've seen different angles into it, and you've looked at it as a horse and a physical.
We park up just at the side here, and we sit in the car and we watch them here. And I don't know whether the boys do, but I try not to look at the next page before the horse comes up. Now, it does say Cotai Glory in front of you, but I'm trying to envisage the breeze and watching the breeze. Trying not to look at the page, because that will influence you. It's a little bit like Emperor's New Clothes. If you see them there, you might skew your opinion on what's happening in front of your eyes. So start with our eyes and then work outwards. Yeah,
and back yourself from the experience that you clearly have had at the breeze ups. Hoping that she's going to be as good a racehorse that you would want to expect from a breeze up. Tell me then about what happened next, because as you said, you buy a lot of these horses on spec. What was the story from when you saw her? You obviously went into the ring, you were successful, bought her for, what was it? 57,000. What happens now with a filly like this, and tell us the rest of the story.
So at the end of every sale, we kind of collate what we've bought, and we kind of put them together in a nice little package and send them on to the team who's on our mailing list, and then just kind of start punting the horse. But then they all appear on our website. We'll get our regular clients who ring us and say, come on, what have you bought? Give me a little blurb on them. What did you like? What do you like about that particular horse? And then you just simply, you know, they're all on our website, and you just simply kind of hopefully wait for the phone to ring and people to take shares in them.
And was she an easy sell off the back of the back of this, or was it a case of, you know?
No, she was a fairly slow burner.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I think she actually went to a race course with a few shares available. Would you believe?
Wow.
Yeah.
And from there on in, I mean, she probably was an easier sell after her first race, and she went from strength to strength. What was she showing Richard Fahey, who clearly was part of the buying process as well? Is that right?
Yeah, Richard, Robin, and Mouse, they were there. He takes them home and puts them on his breeze up program. We don't know what he does, but he just quietens them down and takes care of them for kind of 4 or 5 weeks. And then usually they go for an away day, and they video the away day, and he sent it through to us, and she did particularly well in that away day. So we were expecting big things at Ripon on debut.
And she duly obliged, and then it went from there to there. She's every sort of syndicate manager's dream, isn't she? Because she went to all the big dances up until the summer. You know, you would have been, if you just accepted Goodwood as the pinnacle, you would have been very happy. But it just kept on rolling. Did she just strengthen and improve as a horse in a very short space of time?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of testament to her preparation through the breeze up system. You know, she was already quite well schooled. Nothing really fazed her. She'd been through quite a lot already, and that stood her in good stead. She had a great mindset, and she just took her racing so well. You know, every time she raced, she'd trot up sound the next morning. She'd never leave a nut, and it was very easy as a manager just to kind of plot and plan her campaign all the way through. There was never a bother with her. She was an absolute dream to deal with.
Yeah, and I remember the day, like it was yesterday, being at York, and she ran possibly even the race of her career when she was second in Nunthorpe to Highfield Princess. And she looked, I remember seeing her physically as big, or if not bigger than Highfield Princess. I was so impressed with her physically. So that must have really amazed you, really, what this horse has done in such a short space of time.
Yeah, you know, physically, she didn't really need that 28, 29 pounds, whatever it was, but the weight for race, you know, Admiral Rouse decreed, and we just followed. We sent her there, and no, physically she was probably as mature as any horse in the field.
And then you went obviously on from there onto the Abbey, and there was a race in between, wasn't there? But the Abbey was, the Abbey was the race where, you know, she was given a phenomenal ride, and you had those scenes and the winners in the closure. But that again must be up there with some of the best moments you've ever had as racing managers. Does that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure when you've got a favourite for a Group 1, and once you cross the line, I must admit that my first feeling was relief rather than joy. But I think the guys kind of covered the joy part of that. It was absolute carnage there, wasn't it? But it was brilliant to see. That's what racehorse ownership can provide. You know, it's a feeling unlike anything else, and I think they just let all their feelings out there in one hit. And yeah, you know, the Abbey's a race we've always kind of wanted to win. And we've fired a few bullets at it, and we've maybe just come up a little bit short. But to do it for the first time in 44 years with a 2-year-old as well, I mean, first horse since I was born to do it. It was absolutely special, and she'll forever be a historic horse, and she'll always have a very, very special place in Middleham Park folklore. Yeah,
so by the time you get to the Abbey, 57,000 guineas, she's paid that back and some, hasn't she? And then it doesn't stop there, I suppose. Obviously, with a horse like this being a 2-year-old and achieving everything she has, how difficult a decision was it to then send her to the mare's sale and decide that actually your time as her owners was going to be it?
I'll fill that one then.
A bit heartbreaking.
Look, she'd come a long way in a short space of time. She'd achieved quite a lot, really. You know, there's not too many other boxes that really we needed to tick. It was probably a good time to just kind of assess where we were with her assessor market. The syndicate owners had agreed a valuation that they put on her, and if a market agreed with that value, then we were happy for somebody else to have the fun of her. It was a difficult decision, but ultimately, as we keep mentioning, it is a commercial entity, this, and you've got to try and make sense of it when you can, in a very, you know, we're not sheikhs, we're not kings, we're not, the guys are just normal people, and if there's an opportunity to get paid, fair play to them, they took the opportunity, and boy did they get paid. Yeah, well, absolutely. I suppose it's difficult. You know, your heart can rule your head can rule your heart. And Tim, you're at the end of the day, Middleham is selling the dream to enjoy racehorse ownership, to be able to commercially do well and give something back and more, encourages, you'd like to hope, more people to come back into the syndicate and do it again. But the experience is something that you will always remember. If a breeze up doesn't work out, you know that what you've achieved is exceptional.
I mean, it's been good for business. You know, I often describe Middleham Park as a hobby that got out of hand, which is what I was a teacher for 30 years, and it just grew and snowballed. And as I say, it started a hobby, and it ended up being quite a strong business. So from a business point of view, it's been very good. You know, the guys who've sold her, they've been reinvesting, they've been buying into yearlings, and they're pledging for breeze up horses. So it's a good cycle, you know, a good circle of life. It's a good cycle for next year and for 2023 and 2024.
Yeah, it's certainly a great story for the breeze ups, but also for syndicate ownership and what you can achieve in a short space of time. Obviously, she would be the queen in name for you guys, but also the queen in terms of what we're trying to show about what you can do at the breeze ups. But she's not the only one, and my goodness, there's so many horses that we could have picked out to show and as a bit of a show and tell. But I'm going to go back a little bit further, and we will go back to 2015. So this is lot 122 as Zoffany, and at the time Zoffany, pretty early on in his stallion career, a wonderful racehorse. And it does say Peter and Ross Doyle Bloodstock, who we know very well, associated with Richard Hannon. So tell me a little bit about your association with them and what it's like buying with the Doyles, and a bit about this Zoffany colt that you did see.
Yeah, well, the association goes back more than one generation, doesn't it, with the Doyles and the Hannons, and they've had numerous successes, umpteen Group 1 successes, and Ventura Storm, who ended up being the Zoffany progeny that we bought here, he was just another one on their production line. So they're brilliant to work with, both Richard Hannon, you know, probably as entertaining a trainer as you could possibly wish to have, and Peter and Ross Doyle. That if there's something that they don't know about racing, if there's someone they don't know in racing, then I've yet to meet that person who will know that fact. So we lean on them heavily when we're buying with the Hannons, and also we'll buy other horses with them as well. Story on this one. Richard rang me. I wasn't actually at the sale at the time. Richard rang me and said, "I've just bought this horse on spec." I said, "I never give 110,000 on spec. It's too much here." But I just loved him, the way that he came down the middle of the track. And I said, "Leave it with me." And I sent a few texts out, and he didn't do a particularly great time. but then that was probably because of the ultimate distances that he was going to be ending up running over, didn't he? He was second in the St Ledger, for instance. I said, let me sleep on it. I sent a few texts out. Quite a lukewarm response from the people at the other end of the text. And the following morning, Richard rang me to say, any progress? And I sent a few more texts out and started to get a little bit more positivity from it. I said, go on and put us down for that one. So again, we bought him on spec. Richard bought him on spec. Doyle's bought him on spec. We bought him on spec. And he was another slow burner. He was probably July before we sold all the shares in him. They didn't go overnight. And he hadn't really been showing too much at home. On debut, I think he was third at Newmarket on debut. Then he went back to Newmarket and won and beat a couple of Godolphin horses there, which stepped him up in class in the novice at Salisbury. And then we were going to go for a Group 1, the Grand Prix de Saint Cloud, I think it is, 10 furlongs Group 1 at the end of the season, and he just picked up a little niggly injury before we could go there. So that was the end of his 2-year-old career. His 3-year-old career, we started off in the fielding. Ryan Moore rode him that day. Good performance, good tenacious performance. I think we went to the Breeders' Jockey Club after that, got put in our place. Regrouped, went to the Glasgow Stakes, managed to win that. Went to the Prix de Reux. Then we had a crazy decision to make. Do we go for the Ledger? Tom said, let's go for the Ledger. I was probably wanting to go back for the Grand Prix de Deauville. But we went for the Ledger, and he just touched off there. We then went and won our Group 1. Group 1 was the Grand Premio del Jockey Club in Milan, and he was a fantastic day. We had 20 odd owners over there. Superb day. And look, it was privileged. He played the national anthem for us on the podium afterwards. So son of Zoffany was the first son of Zoffany to win a Group 1, and I think for a couple of years he was the only son of Zoffany or progeny of Zoffany to win a Group 1. So yeah, fantastic story. We sold him well to Australia, and he's more than paid his way down there. They've got all their money back, and he's even been running over hurdles over there, I do believe. He's had a fantastic career. Everyone that's been involved with him, whether it's Willie Brown at the start, at the inception, whether it's Richard Hannon, ourselves, and Down Under, everyone's done really well from him.
So I think what's really interesting with both, obviously, both the Platinum Queen and Ventura Storm turned into Group 1 winners, but the fact that this horse was a slow burner in terms of having to sell him, you had to take a little bit longer because he wasn't an obvious 2-year-old. You had to wait and maybe into the 3-year-old career really for him to really show his true colours. But the similarities is that there maybe by the unsexy sires at the time, the unfashionable ones that you were happy to take a bit of a punt on. And that's just something that you can't really work out why. You've got that gut feeling that something's going to go right. You've seen something that potentially just others have missed. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's, as we've said, we have to compromise somewhere, and probably the one place we're not going to compromise is the horse. So it has to be somewhere else. And by definition, the flip side of that is that it's probably the pedigree that we have to compromise a wee bit on. And it served us well. Timur, champion 2-year-old by Arakan, wasn't the most fashionable. Dick Turpin and Trumpet Major and him, they were probably the only 3 really good progeny from Arakan. And that's kind of cool company. He was by Jeremy. He won. He went off favourite for a Phoenix Stakes, and he won a Papan, and he won a Railway Stakes. By Jeremy, he ended up being a national hunt stallion, didn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a fabulous story about Ventura Storm, and as you say, very different to the Platinum Queen in that he was turned out to be a middle distance, long distance prospect. But and you've touched on Tom making the decision about the St Ledger. So your mindset when it comes to finding these horses and turning them into something, you like to get very close to the race planning of it all. Would you have ever have thought that this horse was going to turn out into what he was?
No, in a word. Whenever you buy a horse, you always think that it could be a useful horse, a nice horse. That's all you can ever really try to achieve in this game, But the stories we're talking about today are obviously quite high profile, but you just kind of want to make them a winner first and foremost to provide people with that experience, and then anything else from there is a bonus. But the way that this particular horse, Ventura Storm, progressed through the ranks quite quickly, really, during his 3-year-old career was quite remarkable. And ultimately there was only one Ledger, so we had to we had to really go for it, I felt. Plus, it's only half an hour down the road from us, so it's much better than going abroad. So yeah, and very nearly got the job done that day. But no, he was a fantastic animal.
When you look at the horses that you bought from Breeze Ups and the success stories compared to, a lot of success stories from the yearling sales as well, but the durability that these horses have, the fact that you can send them abroad, you can run them month after month, and they reward you with that. There's kind of a common theme with these Breeze Up horses compared to the others, isn't there?
Yeah, I think that's something that is quite noticeable with the Breeze Up horses. They do come kind of hardened to life. You're forever getting sore shins or something with 2-year-olds or with yearlings, really. But these horses, they seem relatively bomb-proof, and like you say, you can continue to run them, and how they progress as well. They're not just out-and-out speedsters and 2-year-olds. They can progress and graduate through the trips and through the disciplines. They're hardy horses who, I think trainers will attest to this as well. They're very hardy, and they take their work, they take their racing.
Yeah, and they make to be very good syndicate horses, for that in mind, which brings me to what must be one of the most super fun syndicate horses that you have on your books, Silky Wilkie. And again, Maymas, what can you say about Maymas? Has been an absolute revelation. But at this stage, when it was 2021, so 2 years ago now, Maymas was a sire that everyone was speaking highly of, but you managed to get possibly the best value of all of them. Can you take me back to this point, and also what this sale, the Tassels Island Goresbridge Breeze Up sales, offers you, which potentially is a bit different to the kind of more high profile like the Craven and the Guineas Breeze Up sales?
Well, I think it's actually a really, really good sale. There's good value to be had there. There's a lot of nice horses to be had there, and maybe it just comes at the end of a bit of a busy sales season for some agents. So maybe not everybody's as truly focused on that, and that's maybe where we can maybe steal a little bit of value and maybe have a bit of an edge, because as we say, we attend every sale, and we'll take this sale just as seriously as we would do a Craven or a Guineas sale as well. So but we like to focus there, and there can be little nuggets. Obviously, again, his pedigree wouldn't be the deepest, wouldn't be the most black type laden pedigree in the world, but as you say, Maymas was a sire who we were keen to get on board with, and he's just been such a cool, perfect syndicate horse to be involved with. Very typical of a Maymas as well, who just you throw work at him, you throw races at him, and he's thrived and loved it. He's not the biggest horse in the world, but he's got the biggest heart in the world. Yeah,
well, that's what Maymas has clearly punched into his horses, isn't it?
We even call it the Maymas head carriage. They just drop and stretch. And another Tally-Ho produce, wasn't it? Another Tally-Ho, Roger and his team do fantastically well there.
They've been a great source for plenty. I've been speaking to Richard Brown, what he's bought, the amount of horses he's bought from him at Ardab and Perfect Power, but this represents probably the best value of them all, considering what he's gone on to do. But yeah, you can see if he's going to put that kind of head carriage and effort into all his races, then you're going to have, again, a fun syndicate horse.
17,500 guineas.
Can't get it wrong.
100 and odd. What's not to like? Yeah. What more could you wish for?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I love to see you see Middleham Park runners most days, don't you? And you're very creative, and you like to send them all over the country. You like to keep your syndicate members busy and your horses busy, and you've got to buy a kind of horse that is able to offer that job for you. Is that right?
He's been the perfect syndicate horse, hasn't he? Runs everywhere, runs genuine everywhere, runs right through the line, wins more than he costs in prize money. Wins more prize money than he costs to keep, and just shows 17,500, 57,000, 110,000. You can do it on all kind of budgets if you're shopping at the Breeze Ups. I think we bought Prince of Pillow from the Goresbridge as well. I think he was €38,000. He's done particularly well, won a listed race, placed in a Group 3 Cornwallis at the back end of last year. So he was a little superstar for us last year from Goresbridge.
Cora Lilo as well was from there with the Hearties. She was third in a Round Tower. And we're hoping to pick up some more black type with her. She's a very useful filly, rated 100.
So how difficult is it going into the sales thinking you've got a number of horses you'd like to buy at the Breeze Ups, but say to yourself at the first Breeze Up sale, right, you've got to keep a powder dry for all the 2, 3, 4, 5 sales that there are coming up. How hard is it to be as restricted as possible?
I think the market kind of does our
Yeah,
job
the market
for us,
does.
really.
The market tells us you've got to have pretty thick skin, broad shoulders. You get beat plenty of times, and obviously you're successful a number of times. I remember at Goresbridge last year, we were kind of thinking, well, we've got plenty, we're fine, we're comfy where we are, but there were 2 or 3 there that just ticked our boxes, and we said, okay, let's stretch the elastic a wee bit, and let the hammer went down on 3 of them, and it turned out to be 3 really good horses.
Yeah, I know what it's like being an underbidder and being heartbroken plenty of times, and you can see the horses that do go on and do brilliant things. And actually, it's quite nice when you have been underbidded to a good one, because you think, well, we know we're doing something right, but there will be a different portion of the market that will just have a little bit more, but that's not something that you should be too despondent about.
No, because you should take some pride in it. We were underbidders on Raja Singh, the Coventry winner. He's now a stallion, isn't he, for Phil Cunningham? And we still joke to this day with Richard Spencer about the fact that we can die happy that we underbid a Coventry winner, even though we've never had a Coventry winner. At least we underbid one day.
Yeah, so I mean, it brings me to possibly a nice end in that, look, you've achieved so much as a syndicate. You've achieved Grade 1 winners on the over jumps, Group 1 winners in this country and outside. What would you like to see over the next 28 years of Middleham? What happens from this point onwards? What would you like to achieve?
More of the same, really. We're forever learning and honing in on our buying policy. You just kind of want to minimise the horses who might not work. Obviously, we know you're dealing with flesh and blood, but you'd like to try and minimise what doesn't quite work, and try and just provide as many people with as many memories as possible, really.
And from an approach to buying, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing, are you very happy with the way that you've set yourself up as a team going forward, and that vision is working, so keep it as it is?
Yes and no. Yes. We're very happy where we are. Record-breaking everything last year for syndicates per se and for Middleham Park. But no, we're always tinkering. We're never quite happy with the formula. We're never quite happy with. There's always room for improvement, and our owners tell us that there's room for improvement. Yeah. So they're not backward at coming forward in that regard. So we're always trying to make tweaks and little tinkers and make things even better, whether it be on the track, buying policies, selling policies, and even off the track. Yeah,
the owners keep you on your toes as much as they want to. And while we have you, just in case, because I would be remorse for me not to mention the horse that you've planning a Kentucky Derby trial with. Can you tell me a little bit about that plan? Because obviously it's wonderful to have a syndicate that's creative enough and punchy enough to go and bring their horses to the races that will give them global prominence. What has got you to this point that you think that you might have a Kentucky Derby hope?
I think that he won at Kempton.
Yeah.
the race title.
Yeah.
Just nudged us in that direction.
As soon as he kind of got his head in front, it became on our radar. There's another race for him at Chelmsford. See how he goes there. And everyone's heard of a Kentucky Derby. It's a race that you're not going to have too many chances to run a horse in. I know Archie's never had one. Luke Morris has never had a ride in that race, and I don't think we'll ever probably have another opportunity to have a runner there. So it's firmly on our radar. And look, as we say, we're selling the dream here, and we're trying to create memories for people. And the syndicate members are quite bullish about wanting to give this a go. But no, the horse has just been an absolute revelation on the all-weather this winter. First past the post in his last 6 starts, and if he's first past the post in his last 7, then probably we'll give it a go. Yeah, well, I suppose if you give your syndicate members a taste of the high life, they get quite used to it. Indeed. Well, best of luck, and thank you very much for giving us your time this morning.